But we did see dedication of a different type here that I did like. Russell's daughter, who turned down that original advance for sex at the end of the world, here she's willing to trade sex to get her brother some meds. So at least somebody is willing to do what it takes to have their family members survive.
Yeah, that might be the realest moment of the entire movie.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower after Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to the 4th of July edition of Shat the Movies, where we ask, were the movies we loved when we were growing up really that good? Have you caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you even remember what Blockbuster Video was? If you answered yes, then this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Gene Lyons, and with me today is my co-host, Big D, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
And we're going to take a look back in time and decide if our favorite films still hold up. Each week, the audience selects from 4 movie choices that we break out in the race car VHS tape rewinder and watch the movie that tallied the highest number of votes. At the end of the podcast, Big D and I will provide the audience with the number of wipes the movie took to get off our respective bums. So find a comfortable spot on the sofa and accompany us for a journey through our vast VHS movie collections. Just a reminder, you can download Shat the Movies via iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, Stitcher, or wherever fine podcasts are found. This week, very special edition. We were going to do 10 Things I Hate About You, but Big D called an audible in honor of our nation's independence, and we decided to watch the landmark alien sci-fi war movie, Independence Day.
Just one question. Is your voice rough today, or is it the mic?
No, it is my voice. I competed at a video game tournament in Chicago all weekend for Killer Queen, and I have no voice left.
Okay, well, that'll be good going into this holiday weekend. And yes, I called an audible. It was Sunday night. I was sitting there. I was going to go turn on 10 Things I Hate About You, and it hit me. If I'm going to watch one bad movie, why don't I watch one that's at least relevant to the holiday weekend coming up?
Absolutely. And, I think this is a movie that's long overdue for us. You and I both having military experience, you serving in the U.S. Army and me in Air Force Junior ROTC. I think we've got a lot to say about the way the military is depicted and the way our great nation is depicted in this film.
Yeah, I think we're going to have a lot to say about this. It started off earlier today when you were texting me saying, I don't really think it's that bad. I got a feeling by the end of the movie, you came around to my side of the table.
So if you don't remember, Independence Day is an epic adventure film in which strange phenomena surface around the globe. The skies ignite, terror races through the world's major cities, and as these extraordinary events unfold, it becomes increasingly clear that a force of incredible magnitude has arrived. Its mission, total annihilation. So this movie came out in 1996, directed by Roland Emmerich, and it took in $817.4 million in adjusted worldwide box office. So this was number 1 movie for 1996 at the box office, rated PG-13 for intense, incredible sci-fi destruction and Will Smith violence.
I got to tell you, I was going to save this to the end, but I found an amazing resource. You're talking about that's PG-13. Have you ever looked into like parents' guides to movies?
No, I don't touch anything parent related.
Dude, this is gold. Okay. So there's multiple sites that will rate movies on categories that parents care about, like nudity and sex, violence and gore, profanity, drugs, alcohol and smoking, and then fighting and intense scenes. How have we missed this all these years? They break down the stats of every single movie. I wish I'd found this 35 movies ago.
Now, this isn't because you're concerned with your daughter's well-being in watching films. This is more for your own selfish reasons.
Shit, it's for the podcast. Where else am I going to find out that in this film, they use hell at least 26 times, damn 8, oh my gosh 6, goddamn 5, oh my god 5, ass 4, crap 4, shit 3, Jesus or son of a bitch 2, bastard 1. This is a treasure trove of great information.
It's actually subtly a prayer, I think, if you look at it. The deep core of this movie is actually a prayer to God. It's a very reverent movie.
Yeah, and also in case you were just wondering, in the sexual nudity category, which is a 3 of 10, there is a central theme of exotic dancing. And in one scene, the stripper does a routine in skimpy lingerie, but it's brief.
The most unreal routine for a stripper I've ever seen, I think, in any film. So I first saw this movie as a teenager, but you were an adult, I guess, when you saw this?
Yeah, it came out in 96, so I was 23. And I remember this summer vividly because I was in Sweden for a summer vacation with my family and college girlfriend. But I remember all the newspapers had this big blockbuster coming out, and there was no internet for me to go see a trailer. So instead of really focusing on enjoying this trip, in the back of my mind, I was thinking, I cannot wait to get back and see this science fiction blockbuster that I know I've been waiting since the last Star Wars, something to really excite me. Oh boy, was I wrong.
Yeah, man. I mean, talk about excitement. I'd had my driver's license for about a month, I think, when this movie came out. And just such a change in lifestyle from today to back in 96. You would anticipate stuff like this, and you'd plan weekends around a movie release this big, and that was your summer thing. Like, that was the benchmark for the summer. So I remember this was like the first big effect summer blockbuster that I could drive my car to. And I remember watching it on the big screen and just being blown away by the sound and the visuals on this huge screen. This really set the tempo for what I determined would be a movie worth going to the theater to watch.
God, but I want to take some of our younger viewers back. Now you just go online, you see a trailer. Back in the day, you only saw trailers in the theater, or on Saturday, I think, or Sunday afternoon. There was a show that aired that just was like coming attractions, which was 30 minutes of trailers. So if you really wanted to build hype, and this movie did, you would have tie-ins with restaurants, with toys, but you had to get into the movie theater to see the trailer, to see what the big to-do is about.
So speaking of that trailer, Big D, why don't you let the audience have it? Happy 4th of July, everyone.
Listen to this. This better not be another damn Russian spy job.
Away from air traffic red, say the skies are clear.
It's the real thing. A radio signal from another world.
President, our intelligence tells us the object is settled into a stationary orbit. Part of it is broken off into nearly 36 other pieces, smaller than the whole, sir. Yet over 15 miles in width themselves.
Where are they heading?
They should be entering our atmosphere within the next 25 minutes.
Let's just get there as quickly as
What's
possible.
the rush, huh? Think we'll get to Washington and won't be there?
It is confirmed. The unexplained phenomenon is heading for Moscow.
It's like a chess.
First, they're positioning their pieces using this one signal to synchronize their efforts.
And then what?
Checkmate.
God.
I really don't think they flew 90 billion light years to start a fight.
God, I hope they bring back Elvis.
There's gonna be a lot of frightened people out there. Yeah. I'm one of them.
All right, on July 2nd, a giant, and we mean giant, alien mothership, over 340 miles in diameter, enters orbit around Earth and deploys several dozen saucer-shaped destroyer spacecraft, each of those 15 miles across. The destroyers take positions over many of Earth's major cities, including New York, Washington, D.C., Los Angeles, Moscow. David Levinson, played by Jeff Goldblum, an MIT graduate working on satellites for a cable company in New York City, discovers a signal hidden in satellite transmissions, which he believes is a timer counting down to a coordinated attack by the aliens. With the help of his ex-wife, Constance Spano, played by Margaret Cullen, a White House staffer, David and his father, Julius, gain entrance to the Oval Office to warn President Thomas J. Whitmore, played by Bill Pullman, of the impending attack. The president immediately orders large-scale evacuations of the targeted U.S. cities, but the aliens attack with advanced directed energy weapons before the evacuations can be completed. The president, his young daughter, portions of his staff, Constance, and the Levinsons narrowly escape aboard Air Force One as the destroyer lays waste to Washington, D.C.
Okay, so I think the movie starts off on the wrong foot. Last week we discussed in The Thing that they give away a big plot point by showing the alien ship in the first frames of the movie. They do that here. Why show the ship and just, you said 340 miles wide, why do it right away? I thought it was really effective showing the shadow over the cities. If they had just held out the reveal until the destroyers break out over the city out of those flaming clouds, it would have been dramatic. Instead, they show us this ridiculous scale of these ships.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, first of all, if this is an invasion force, it makes no sense for the ship. I can see the ship being that big if you're bringing, as the president says later in this movie, they're like locusts, right? So they're coming to the planet to inhabit. I think that's why it had to be so big, is the mothership, is that it's got all of them on it. It's like the entire race. They just go from planet to planet. Like, I get that part. But I agree with you that they didn't need to show it right away. And in fact, they did a lot of cool things that, like you said, could have gone a bit further. So the shadows emerging. Also, you see that lone satellite kind of going out in Earth orbit. And then, as it approaches the ship, you could have little things like satellites disappearing or going offline. Add some, mystery to there. Instead, it was just really heavy-handed. Boom, here's the big ship. No mystery involved.
No, it starts off very dramatic. You can tell by the music alone that there's no chance that this race of aliens is going to come in peace, because the music was like, dun, dun, dun. It wasn't that E.T. happy alien music, so right away shit's going to go bad.
Now, I did have a theory about the mothership being shown that early, and that is that it's the way that the film can show, it's like a barometer of special effects. Like, each movie that comes out, from The Last Starfighter to Aliens and The Thing, each of them shows its ship to kind of give you an idea of how far tech has come. So it's almost like they're showing off, they got this, look at the ship we can do. And you still see that to this day. I mean, Star Wars did it, and movies now, they've got to show the alien ship. They can't resist. It's like candy.
But I think it's lazy. It's hard to show a ship in scale over a city. And you look at more modern movies like District 9, where the ship really looks like it's hovering over the city. These ships don't look like they're hovering over the city. They look more like you did a split screen and the ship takes over the entire top half of the screen. There's no way for me to really see other than it's a giant map painting. I think it was a mistake. It didn't look good. It looked cheesy.
And then they go from that to this very serious tone. You've got these ships invading. The world is holding its breath. You're trying to see what's going on. And then immediately, like just this sour note, the entire movie changes gears. And now you've got drunken Randy Quaid on a plane. I don't know if they're trying to insert some humor here, but did people actually find this drunken idiot charming or funny? I got that they were trying to do the contrast of pastoral happy life on Earth versus this alien presence, but he didn't seem too happy.
No, there was definitely some disjointed tone in the movie, almost as if they had shot the entire movie. Because God, it's almost 2.5 hours long. And I got the feeling that they filmed an hour and 50 minutes and then realized, this is a bit dark. Let's throw back in some humor. But I completely agree. Randy's character, Russell, he's a fool. He is a drunken idiot. I was watching the scene with my wife and my sister-in-law who's visiting. And it was nice that they were watching with me because they helped translate the first mishap when Russell dusts the wrong crops. There's a Spanish family, and they turn around to each other, and they say in Spanish, he did it again. Really just reinforcing the fact that Russell's not only a drunk and a danger to his kids, but he's been doing this for some time. And I just think it's kind of ironic that Randy Quaid actually became his character Russell Case in real life in his later years.
Yeah, I mean, you got to wonder if that's, he's kind of like a one-trick pony there. You look at, Christmas Vacation and all these other movies. At least in Christmas Vacation, though, I think he was a bit likable. I mean, he's a lot of people's favorite character from that movie. In this, I just didn't get what was to like about him. He's a mess throughout the movie.
Hold on. This is Cousin Eddie.
Yeah.
What's the difference? Instead of driving the, Winnebago, he's flying a crop duster.
I mean, basically, they're asking him to do the same thing, but it's in an all-around comedy. It makes some sense.
Okay, so they make multiple references to him being sexually violated by the aliens. Do we believe he was actually abducted, or is this just part of his psychosis?
I mean, from seeing these aliens, I don't know if he was ever abducted. I don't buy it. I think they're trying to say that he's got some sort of post-traumatic stress disorder from Vietnam. But again, you've got, like, look at how many people you're offending in this one really stupid joke. Alcoholics, Vietnam veterans, people who actually believe they were abducted by aliens. This is just a mess, and they carry this joke on throughout the movie. It's not like just one part of the movie. It goes throughout the movies. But I can't complain about everything here. I mean, I think that we can agree that there are some effects that were pretty good. I thought the AWAC, the surveillance plane rolling into a cloud of fire and the fire entering the aircraft was pretty neat. A lot of fire in that first hour. And I was really into the effects up until that Washington takeoff scene when Air Force One is taking off with this giant cloud of fire behind it. An aircraft that big with that much of a change in pressure from an explosion and that much of a thermal thrust, it would be very, very hard to fly with that thing. So I'm glad that, the president and Boomer the dog were able to survive clouds of fire being fired at them.
God, and you talk about how drunks would feel about some of the social commentary. What about the LA News report where they're trying to beg gang members not to shoot at the ships? Or the fact that they don't think Will Smith could become a shuttle pilot if he marries a stripper? Are they trying to offend a lot of the working class single moms?
I mean, it's weird because, you think the 90s were not that long ago, but, this is over 20 years ago. And I didn't remember in the 90s, again, just as our minds evolve, that movies were this directly offensive and judgmental of people. And they keep bringing up the stripper thing. And I think you made a few notes about that.
I don't know if it's the best judgment for Jasmine to bring her son and her dog to her shift while aliens are potentially attacking. I don't know if that's the best place for a child to hang out.
This movie pays no attention to where children should be hanging out. I mean, children being taken into Area 51. You got children, on runways. They don't give a shit about children in this movie. And again, Boomer the dog just hanging out at the strip club makes absolutely no sense. But I think this movie has a blatant, for being PG-13, has a blatant disregard for the welfare of children. I think it hypersexualizes some of the children. It's weird.
You talk about hypersexualization. The RV park where Russell's kids are growing up. This doesn't seem like a great place for kids either, but it's an opportunity for a kid who's looking to, leverage the alien attack for his own enjoyment. I found it was kind of funny. I felt bad laughing, but the line the kid throws to Russell's daughter about, do we really want to both die virgins? Wouldn't it be great? Let's just do it. And my sister-in-law looked at me and she said, that's a great line. That probably would have worked with me.
Oh man, for me, I would have been like, if I had managed to stay a virgin that long and I was facing death, I'd want to hold on to it. You want to go to the afterlife, clean as a whistle. I don't know if that's the right phrase to use, but getting back to the alien threat. So, we've got this. Jeff Goldblum is doing what Jeff Goldblum does. As Raj said when we were talking about this offline, he said that basically he just come off Jurassic Park and he's doing the same exact character essentially. And he breaks down a couple of things. And one of the things that he demonstrates is how the aliens are using our satellites against us. So this alien race, as we find out, they invade world after world and inhabit it until they ruin it and then they go to the next world. You're telling me that they are dependent on functioning satellites. So there has to be a society that has functioning satellites, that level of technology, in order to coordinate their attacks. From there, it doesn't make sense, and it just keeps going on.
Yeah, but back in the 90s, you got to remember that not many people really had home computers, and you could spout any kind of techno babble, and it would sound, ooh, wow, he must know what he's talking about. I half fell out of my chair with David's conversation about how he's going to try to break the code, and I had to write this down because this is some shit I just couldn't have remembered. There's some kind of weird signal embedded in the satellite feed. The signal has a definite sequential pattern. And as soon as I find out the exact binary sequence, then I can calculate a phase reversal with the analyzer that I built you on your birthday and apply it. And that should be able to block out the signal completely. How does that shit fly as something plausible?
I think they probably, just like you said, they didn't want anybody to analyze it or pick it apart. So they said, just make it as complicated as you could. What they should have done is gotten any lawyer to write it. And I think they would have done a better job of keeping people mystified and yet still not being able to say, hey, that's total horseshit. So moving on to the next day, July 3. Now the U.S. conducts a coordinated counterattack. The move follows the Black Knights, a squadron of Marine Corps FA-18 Hornets from El Toro Marine Corps Air Station, as they participate in an assault on the destroyer that has devastated the city of Los Angeles. Their weapons fail to penetrate the craft's force field, and it responds by releasing scores of smaller attacker ships, which are similarly shielded and armed with high-energy torpedoes. One-sided dogfights ensue. Captain Stephen Hiller, Will Smith, manages to evade the guns of attacker ships and lures a single attacker to the Grand Canyon. There, as his jet is about out of fuel and the attacker is about to overtake him, he deploys the landing chute for his jet, and it drapes across the alien craft, temporarily disorienting the pilot. Captain Hiller ejects from his jet. The alien crashes in the top of the canyon wall and lands in the desert. Captain Hiller parachutes to a landing close by and angrily marches over to find and confront whatever life form is in the alien craft. The door to the alien fighter craft pops open, and a very bizarre-looking creature with tentacles appears. Captain Hiller delivers a right cross and knocks the creature out, saying, "Welcome to Earth." He sits down and smokes a victory cigar.
Okay, so you mentioned you were in, was it Air Force, JRTC?
That's correct.
Okay, so in your experience, did they teach you know, that when, you know, fighter pilots, when you're in the middle of battle and you're fighting for human survival and your entire squadron's being destroyed, that you should talk shit over the radio?
Yeah, so my my aerospace science instructor was an F4 pilot, and he actually played for us, you know, audio, not from dogfights, but from missions. And it's so protocol oriented that this, you know, getting these hotshot pilots to talk like that takes a lot of training. But they do. And so, yeah, this is not at all accurate. Also, something we'll get into here is you don't have that kind of time. Dogfights are over in a matter of seconds. There's not that much chatter up there.
So do you think that this formation that they were using to attack the destroyer, did you look at the radar?
Yeah, first of all, maybe don't send that many aircraft when you're just probing the thing that you're attacking. You know, each aircraft should have multiple missiles it can fire with a very large payload. You don't need to send that many at once in that formation, which makes no sense. It basically was inviting anybody with any sort of air-to-air capability to take those aircraft out. They didn't even need to send attackers out. They could have just shot, you know, pulse rifles out there. Also on the radio chatters, you mentioned you got Harry Connick Jr. doing an impersonation of Jesse Jackson and black pilots laughing about it. Like, you know, this movie is from a completely different era. And Harry Connick Jr., again, this is the second time that he's been a funny guy on an aircraft in a war movie. He did Memphis Belle as well. I love Harry Connick Jr., but this was again, just a sour note in the movie.
Well, you're missing even what came before that. You know, Will is, again, they're having personal conversations on the radio. He mentions how distraught he is that potentially Jasmine could have been killed. Harry Connick doesn't show any regard and laughs it off. The death of his supposed best friend's, you know, fiance seems a bit cold.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to, you know, nobody is acting realistically to anything that's going on here, from smoking cigar, you know, being more concerned about when they're going to smoke their victory cigars than the actual alien threat they're about to confront. You know, and the thing is, again, we're talking about these pilots are going up after major cities have been destroyed, and this is their mindset.
I was in the service, you know, during September 11th, and I can remember sitting with my entire company watching the towers burn. And we took it, I mean, it was, everyone remembers that day it was alive. There was no comedy. There was no laughing. None of this existed. And potentially, I'm going to try to put that aside, you know, my personal experience with it. But it didn't, I don't even know if I want to go here with this. I don't think I want to go there. I think it goes to a dark place.
No, I like it. It speaks to the fact that, again, you've got, I mean, I'm watching this going, you know, just like you're saying, I'm watching this going you see the Empire State go, you see the White House go, and people are just like, whoop, like jokes and your marriage, and, you know, it doesn't make sense.
So yeah, we talked about the dogfights and just how they're not showing any kind of radio discipline. Dogfights, I didn't think lasted this prolonged period of time. I don't think they had that much fuel.
Yeah, so I looked into this because I remember again reading up on. I used to study this a lot as far as dogfights go, and I was a big fan of Top Gun. And then I looked into how long dogfights actually last. With the technology today, they don't last very long, and they never really did. But I looked into a couple of things about the aircraft. Now, the aircraft he's flying is a Hornet, and Los Angeles is about 300 miles from the Grand Canyon, and that's being conservative. It's actually a little bit farther than that. Will Smith and Harry Connick Jr. fly 300 miles away from the battle with an enemy fighter on their tail. This enemy fighter apparently cannot gain on them and also cannot shoot them over the course of 300 miles. The top speed of a Super Hornet is about 1,100 miles per hour. So what they're saying here is that Will Smith was able to fly for 20 minutes with a killer alien on his ass, and then the way that he takes it out is by dropping this drag chute into its windshield, and apparently this thing doesn't have any instrumentation. This is a problem too because the F-18 is a marine aircraft. It's designed to be used at land and sea, and it doesn't need a whole lot of runway, and it has a relatively low landing speed. So there is no drag chute on an F-18. If they did want to install one, they'd have to put it between the engines. There's not enough space, and if they put it on top, it would create an immense amount of drag and would make it totally useless as a fighter jet. So this was totally added in for the movie, and it makes no sense. Just sloppy writing. And to this day, it gives me more respect for movies like Top Gun that at least try to make some sort of tactical sense.
Jesus, Will acts like he had some major victory. He didn't outmaneuver the craft. He was running out of fuel. He was going to crash and die. So his last resort was to try to trick it into crashing into the wall a little bit prematurely. And he decides to break out his celebratory cigar and say, "Welcome to Earth." Everyone you know has just been killed. The entire city of Los Angeles is destroyed. You might have wanted to hold on to that cigar a little bit.
The only counter argument I have is that is the quintessential line from this movie. Again, it was charming. It made no sense, but I thought in a movie that's full of mistakes, at least this mistake was entertaining.
So you talk about this being one of the first global destruction blockbusters. I don't remember a movie prior to this where we saw major cities across the globe being destroyed, major icons. And then after this film, we had, Armageddon, Deep Impact, The Day After Tomorrow, like 2012, where you will see these recognizable locations around the world being destroyed. Was this the first?
Yeah, I mean, I remember it was very chilling when we first saw this because you didn't see that on screen, especially not in a convincing manner like this. I mean, it looks fairly real. And honestly, to this day, when I was watching the movie, when the Empire State Building went down, and exploded, it had an impact on me. And I actually still have in its box the Independence Day toy. There's a toy set where you can fly one of the attack ships into the Twin Towers, and you press a button and the towers collapse. It's the creepiest thing, because this movie again came out years before 9/11. So I still have it in its box. I hadn't opened it. I got it like as a collector's item, and then when 9/11 happened, I knew you can never open this thing. But I don't know. Again, for all the cheese of this movie, it still kind of hurt to see the White House and the Empire State Building taken out.
See, but I don't think it looked that impressive. This movie came out in 96. If we go back to just 91, we've already done Terminator 2 Judgment Day. That future vision that Sarah has of the nuclear bombs going off over Los Angeles and the kids turning to ash, and what we see is the vacuum of air and the shockwave destroying the city. To me, that looked much more convincing, and that was 5 years before.
Oh yeah, I think we talked about how that is really the gold standard for a portrayal of Armageddon. I mean, that gave me nightmares. This didn't give me nightmares. So as Hiller is using a parachute to drag the body of an alien across the desert, he's picked up by Russell Cass, Randy Quaid, a crop duster pilot who is traveling across the desert with his kids and a group of refugees in a convoy of RVs. From there, they take the captured alien to Area 51, commanded by Major Mitchell, Adam Baldwin. Area 51 also happens to be where the president and his remaining staff have landed. Area 51 conceals a top-secret facility housing a repaired alien attacker ship and 3 dead alien bodies. In a tour, the president is told that the alien's biochemistry is similar to our own. They don't seem to use sound to communicate, however. The Area 51 staff believes they communicate telepathically. Attempts have been underway since the late 1960s to prepare the attacker ship, and the arrival of the alien mothership activated the attacker ship's controls.
Okay, this is where the movie starts to really go sideways for me. I understand that we're going to look at this a little more critically because we've had some military experience. But why? Okay, let's backtrack here. The salt flats. I understand they explain why Will Smith is there, that he saw Area 51 when he was flying over it. But why is this entire RV armada driving across the middle of the salt flats?
Yeah, they're not on the roads. They don't seem to have any sort of a fuel truck with them. This isn't Mad Max. This makes no sense at all. And it did make for a cool visual with Will Smith out in the middle of the salt flats dragging the alien body, and then you see all the RVs coming. But if you're going to go for that visual, you got to make it make sense. And this made no sense at all.
They're driving these huge gas guzzling RVs from the 1970s. I'm picturing vehicles breaking down, people dying in the heat. This could have been a very different movie. But they pick up Will, who's got, the alien, and he drops another line, which was like, "What is that smell?" Because again, this is a perfect time for some humor to yourself out in the middle of the scorching desert in your tank top, because you're not worried about getting heat stroke. They pull up to the gate of this secret military base. No one knows it's there. It's top secret. The security is airtight. The guard just decides to not only let in Will Smith, but everyone in this caravan.
Yeah, after seeing an alien, after not thinking, okay, we might need to secure this entire thing. And again, this isn't Luke Air Force Base. This isn't Beale Air Force Base. This is freaking Area 51. It's a top secret facility. You think they'd have top level security guards, which we see throughout this movie. There's a lack of security, which is I think my biggest complaint out of many. But I also thought it was awfully convenient for everyone to be headed to Area 51 at the exact same time. And more importantly, the president's going on this tour. He's checking out alien bodies. He's looking at, the ship and all that stuff. Shouldn't the president's main job right now, the country is under attack. Shouldn't the president be getting some way to coordinate the country, to get in communication, let the American people know that he's still there and that that efforts are being made? And instead, he's reduced himself to just a member of the military, if not less.
Yeah, his number one goal should have been to regain command and control of the military, because without him, everyone's just going to flail away and continue to be decimated. But we did see dedication of a different type here that I did like. Russell's daughter, who turned down that original advance for sex at the end of the world, here she's willing to trade sex to get her brother some meds. So at least somebody is willing to do what it takes to have their family members survive.
Yeah, that might be the realest moment of the entire movie.
Oh, and she would have gotten the meds. 100%.
When lead scientist Dr. Brackish Oaken, played by Brent Spiner, removes an outer biomechanical suit from the alien Hiller captured, the living being inside is revealed. The creature regains consciousness and kills most of the examining crew, and because it has no vocal cords, it makes use of Dr. Oaken's voice to communicate with President Whitmore, who is outside the glass windows of the operating room. Its first words are, "Release me." President Whitmore poses a question to the alien, asking if the people of Earth and their invaders can live in peace. The creature says, "No peace." When the president asks the creature what it wants them to do, it responds, "Die." It uses its telepathic powers to get into the president's head, which briefly incapacitates him. The military personnel shoot the alien through the glass, with Major Mitchell stepping through the broken glass and delivering a final headshot. Dr. Oaken is left in a coma.
Yeah, so for me, Brent Spiner, Dr. Oaken, standout performance. He's just enough crazy to believe he's been cooped up there, working all these years on the alien technology. But he's been working on it all his years, right? He finally gets, the big piece, a living alien. They've had these dead ones for years, since the 60s. Would the first thing you do decide to just cut it open and risk killing it?
Well, I think this goes back to your criticism of The Thing as well. Like, you've got an alien that's alive and you're just wearing regular surgical gear. Like, no hazmat suit, no.
Forget about the hazmat suits. Where are the guards? Where are the armed guards watching this potentially lethal alien?
Oh, they're all officers with sidearms. Why do you need guards when you got Jane from Firefly on your side? So, which brings me to the point that this is like a sci-fi Hall of Fame here. You got Adam Baldwin, who's Animal Mother from Full Metal Jacket. He's also Jane from Firefly. You got Brent Spiner, who's Data from Star Trek. You got Jeff Goldblum, who's Jurassic Park fame. So this did make this movie a treat for nerds and dorks alike. I actually really appreciate the cast of this movie much more than the plot and execution of this movie.
So why did they keep saying that the alien was secured in this room? It didn't even have bulletproof glass, but yet they're reassuring him, oh yeah, it can't get out. Bullshit. You couldn't pick up a chair and break the glass. And then the president, once it grabs the doctor and the doctor says, let me out. The president goes, yes, open the door. Open the door. Not a smart move. I'm starting to question his judgment.
Listen, I think you're underestimating Will Smith's punching because this alien was unconscious for like hours. So why restrain it when Will Smith has clearly punched it in the face? And I want to remind everyone that this alien is actually inside a biomechanical suit. So in essence, Will Smith punching it in the head would really not affect the alien inside. But regardless of that, I feel like movies always overestimate how long a being can be knocked out. I mean, I've been knocked out a few times from punches and blows to the head, and you're out for seconds, not hours.
Yeah, if you're out for longer than that, there's been some serious damage done. But we're talking here about the president's not concerned with getting control of the government, but he does come up with one, big piece of information that might have been beneficial in the beginning of the movie. When the Secretary of Defense decides to reveal the fact that, yes, Area 51 does exist and that they do have alien technology. Couldn't this have been beneficial when the aliens were first spotted?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the big argument against there not being an Area 51 now is that people say if Donald Trump had been shown Area 51, we would all know about it at this point. There's no way that shit doesn't pop up on Twitter. This is not just, they say plausible deniability. The President of the United States needs to know about the most advanced technology in the world being within your borders. And then, when you get back to the alien itself, we've seen Aliens from 1986. We've seen The Thing from 1981. I cannot accept a 1996 movie with a plot this clunky and an alien this clunky. The alien looked terrible. It looked fake. It wasn't intimidating at all.
But it did have one of the things I'm the most afraid of. Those thrashing tentacles from The Thing.
As Will Smith called them, the dreadlocks.
No, the dreadlocks is what he's dragging behind. That's part of the biomechanical suit. But it has also this other set of tentacles that come out the front or was that the same thing?
I thought it was the same thing, but you might be onto something.
I was probably covering my eyes.
It's just so scary. So during the incident that President Whitmore is immobilized, he's able to read the thoughts of the alien and learns of their plan. They attack planets, kill off any indigenous life, use up the resources, and move on. They're like locusts, he says. President Whitmore issues very clear orders to nuke the bastards. B-2 Spirit bombers are deployed with the first destroyer targeted, one that is hovering over a deserted Houston, Texas. The weapon explodes but proves ineffective at penetrating the craft's force field and destroys the city instead. As a result, the president orders the remaining bombers called back.
Okay, so I'm glad that they decided to destroy Houston because we can let that city go. That was a good one to let go, but they've already seen that these ships have shields. Does anyone even raise the question that the nuclear weapons might not get through these shields?
Now, I thought about that, and then I thought, look, a nuke should be able to actually get through a shield. So even if this craft is 15 miles in diameter, a nuclear blast should do something to it. And so I would, I would be surprised if it didn't. But these are nukes, and like you said with Terminator 2, a nuke would have a much more devastating impact on a city. I was kind of surprised that these B-2 bombers were apparently using nuclear air-to-air missiles. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Also, did they really need to fly within 200 feet of the ship?
Well, it goes back to those Hornets. I mean, the Hornets flew right up to the hull of the ship and then decided to go, pull up at the last second. There's way too little room for error in any of this aircraft maneuvering.
No, but it actually looked like the B-2 released like a Tomahawk missile. You could have released that from 500, 1,000 miles away. Did you really need to risk a fleet of B-2 bombers?
Well, that's the other thing is these are stealth bombers, and when you put them in a fleet like that, it's kind of ruins the whole effect of having a stealth bomber. But maybe they just didn't have the right pilots because
it's not stealthy when you decide to fly up right to them.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Okay. So I have problems with pilots throughout this movie. Apparently, Marine Corps pilots can fly anything because we see them flying helicopters, alien spacecraft. It reminds me of video games like Battlefield, where you can just jump into any craft and start going. And this isn't just Independence Day. This runs rampant. Star Wars does it. Anybody can grab any aircraft. There's no protocol. There's no security. There's no air traffic control. That one guy tries to stop Will Smith from taking a helicopter. And he's like, "You're not going to shoot me, are you?" Fuck yeah, that guy would shoot him. That's his job.
Exactly. Yes. And just because, and this will come up later in the movie, when they decide to give modern combat jets to people without training, I can drive a car, right? That doesn't mean you can put me behind the wheel of a funny car dragster and expect me to get it down the strip without driving it straight into the wall. So no, just because you can do something very basic and simple does not mean you can do the most advanced, extreme version of that. If you can fly a crop duster, you're not flying an F-15.
I mean, beyond that, you're talking the difference between a Hornet and a helicopter. That'd be like you can drive a car, but you can't fly a plane. I mean, essentially, it's a completely different physics. So First Lady Marilyn Whitmore, played by Mary McDonnell, had been on a working trip to L.A. and was caught up in the destroyer attack there. Captain Hiller's exotic dancer girlfriend, remember she's a stripper, everyone, Jasmine Dubrow, played by Vivica Fox, rescues Mrs. Whitmore when she comes across the wreckage of the helicopter the First Lady had been attempting to escape in. Captain Hiller later finds Jasmine, her son Dylan, and the First Lady camped out in the remains of El Toro and flies them in a helicopter to Area 51. A doctor tells the president that his wife has uncontrollable internal bleeding. When the president goes in to see her, he says, "The doctors say you're going to be just fine." She smiles and responds softly, "Liar." She dies not long after that.
God, I felt terrible. I hated the president's daughter. I really did. I felt like she was one of the children in Willow. She was really bad, but I laughed audibly at the line, "Is mommy sleeping now?"
And you could tell his response is like, yeah.
Mommy's sleeping.
Yeah, shut up. So here's the thing is again, internal bleeding. When they pick Marilyn up, she doesn't look that bad. Like she looks like she just had a bender or something. Like she's not looking terrible. And the guy's like, "Oh, she looks like she's doing pretty bad." I don't understand the point of her being kept alive if they're just going to kill her off anyway. She didn't impart any knowledge on the president. She didn't inspire the attack. I don't know what the hell the point was to keep her alive. And a person dying of internal bleeding, they're going to have hemorrhagic shock. So essentially there's blood pressure pushing on their organs. They've lost a lot of blood. They're not going to be awake and talking to people.
God, you're talking about the First Lady. She would have every possible modern medical procedure available to her. They don't even have her opened up for surgery. You know what? I'm sure these doctors could stop internal bleeding. They wouldn't just let her sit there in the bed and bleed out.
I mean, I think that we're starting to see, Bill Pullman, he's a little nonchalant about mommy sleeping now. I think maybe he wants an exotic dancer of his own.
But you know what? You question what's the point of keeping the First Lady alive. And I think it was very important. She needed to share with Jasmine that she shouldn't be embarrassed about being an exotic dancer. When she mentions that she's a dancer and she thinks it's a ballet, she says, no, I'm proud to be an exotic dancer.
Yeah, because it pays well and she's got, and her son is worth it.
But what about Boomer? I know you love dogs. What do you think of Boomer's miraculous survival?
So Boomer, I'm around a lot of dogs, and there's one thing that a dog will do. If there's a giant ass explosion, he's not going to wait for you to tell him to run. That dog is going to be the first one out of the tunnel. But yeah, there was I feel like they stole a page right out of Die Hard. I expected Bruce Willis to come jumping in right after the dog.
Yeah, and they spent quite a bit of money, it looked like, on that, post-explosion destruction of downtown LA, where there's concrete ripped apart and rebar and cars on fire. And then there's also 3 perfectly pristine palm trees just blowing in the breeze.
I think it was a symbol of LA's resurgence and its ability to survive. So on July 4th, this is now day 3, President Whitmore's nerves are understandably frayed. So when Secretary of Defense Nimziki, played by James Rebhorn, criticizes his decisions and actions, President Whitmore fires him on the spot. David Levinson suggests a plan that involves using a newly operable alien attacker to gain access to the interior of the alien mothership in space in order to introduce a computer virus that will disable the protective shields around destroyers and attackers. Once the computer virus takes effect, nuclear weapons could be used to destroy the mothership. Hiller volunteers to pilot the attacker, with Levinson accompanying him to upload the virus. Before the mission, Hiller and Jasmine take a few minutes to get married, with Dylan as ring bearer and David Levinson and Connie Spano as witnesses. David and Connie reconnect during the service and hold hands. With satellite communications knocked out, the Americans must use Morse code to coordinate an attack with remaining forces around the world, timed to occur when the invaders' shields are set to fail. Lacking enough military pilots to fly all available aircraft, the commanders call for volunteer pilots. Those who step up include President Whitmore and Russell, who both have previous combat flight experience.
Okay. So David comes up with the brilliant idea for the virus. While he is piss drunk, he's hammered. He's been drinking. He's having a conversation with his father, but yet he is miraculously sober once this plan comes into his mind.
Yeah, I think Oppenheimer, when he came up with the A-bomb, was probably pissed drunk at in New Mexico. It makes no sense at all. Aside from that, I don't have a whole lot of issues with Jeff Goldblum. I thought his delivery of the computer virus theory was actually pretty entertaining. I like that he closed out with take him down, take him out, do your stuff. He's not trying to be tough guy military. I love this vintage Goldblum.
Do your stuff. But what about that demonstration? He's had the epiphany on how to use the alien technology. When he's going to demonstrate in front of a room full of people that he's gotten the shields up, did you think that was safe?
Oh, God, Big D. I mean, we talked about the children being allowed anywhere and again, security being super lax there. They're allowing an Air Force officer to fire, who for some reason has a sidearm, to fire bullets knowing they're going to ricochet at the most advanced tech in the world, and the president is in the same room.
Yeah, I think at that point we would start to question whether, David's plan was the right one.
Yeah, I don't know if it would have been just as easy to go, so look, this got a shield around it. Let's accept that and move on. What's the coke? And also, who's putting a Coke can on top of this alien ship?
God. So you work in technology as well as I do. If I told you I want you to design a computer virus for a human computer 50 years from now, could you do that?
Yeah, absolutely not. I mean, you see this throughout, that the alien tech must be stagnant and also must not be much above ours. So you got aliens that can do interstellar travel, apparently. They've got force fields and all that stuff, but their computers run basically the same as ours.
I don't know. Like, what cable would you use? Would it be USB, coax? Would it be, HDMI, Cat5? I've no idea. But at least we have the typical hacker trope that there is the status bar for the virus actually says uploading virus with a matching laughing skull icon. I think that was great, but I don't know. How would you even connect into this alien technology?
I think since they're invader aliens, you'd use Di-Fi. That's what they're operating on. But no, but the thing is, again, talking about this stagnant alien tech, let's talk about transportation too. I mean, okay, so you're looking at, aircraft today, a fighter jet, right? That's, what are we at, the F-35 now? Is that what we're doing with? Let's dial it back 50 years ago, okay? So we're going to go to 1967 aircraft. Now, and tech develops exponentially, not linearly. So the aliens are using the same aircraft that they were using 50 years ago at Roswell. These ships should be light years ahead of the one that crashed at Roswell. That makes no sense at all, too.
Imagine now if we had some vintage World War II Mustangs trying to go into a dogfight with F-15s. This should have been absolute just destruction.
Oh, I mean, if you've got aircraft that have shields on them, they shouldn't even be maneuvering. They should just have turrets. Just be taking out, these hornets left and right.
God, but not even, we're talking munitions, the difference in technology. The biggest thing would be some form of battle targeting. I imagine in the future, probably 50 years from now, and even today, self-guided missiles, it's not like the old days where you were fighting, the Red Baron style with the biplane with the machine gun in the front, where you actually had to aim. You could fly blind and still hit your target. These alien ships should be just taking them out without even batting an eye.
Especially when our ships are being flown by drunken crop dusters and the president. I wanted to point out, again, with a deep respect to the U.S. military, just in the Air Force alone, there are 14,000 active duty pilots, and 5,000 of them are fighter pilots. You're telling me they couldn't find anybody else to fly these things?
No, the fact that the aliens left more aircraft. Why is there a surplus of aircraft? Did they kill the pilots while they were sleeping in the base? You would have made sense that the planes would have gone first. They should have a surplus of pilots and not planes.
Absolutely. You feel like the vehicles would be taken out, not the personnel. But the personnel that do gather on their own way are treated to an amazing speech by Bill Pullman. Raj loves this speech. He said it was one of the few things about the movie that he actually enjoyed. I listened to this speech remembering that it was good. It's really just a series of cliches. It sounds like a little bit of Dylan Thomas, some 80s rock lyrics. It was cheesy.
Yeah, it figures that Raj would love this. Just looking at the crowd that is formed in front of the president, he can't be too confident that this is really going to be the big victory that he expects. There's more handlebar mustaches and biker leather vests, and this crowd looks more like it's some militia or Minutemen groups patrolling the southern border. I really don't think they'd be saving the world.
So if you're wondering how the movie ends, dear listeners, I got you. Hiller and Levinson reach the mothership and implant the virus. President Whitmore leads the American jet fighters against the alien destroyer approaching Area 51. Although the aliens now lack shields, the fighter's supply of missiles is quickly exhausted against the colossal craft and its large complement of assault ships. The underside of the alien craft opens up as its directed energy weapon prepares to fire on the base. The president fires a missile at the cannon, but it connects and explodes with a protective hatch. Just as the squadron is informed that all their missiles have been fired, Russell radios in saying he has one final rocket. As he launches it, his firing mechanism jams. He decides to pilot his aircraft into the alien weapon in a kamikaze attack. The explosion causes a chain reaction which annihilates the ship. Human resistance forces around the world use the same weak point to destroy the remainder of the alien ships, while the nuclear device planted by Hiller and Levinson destroys the alien mothership soon after the duo escape. Hiller and Levinson are caught up in the after effects of the mothership's explosion, but are able to return to the Earth unharmed, crash landing the aliens fighter in the desert close to Area 51. When they emerge from the smoke and dust to join their waiting friends, they're both smoking cigars. The film ends as everyone watches debris from the mothership enter the atmosphere like shooting stars.
Yeah, they started smoking those cigars when they were in the mothership. Somehow that survived the entire trip home and nuclear explosion, re-entering the atmosphere, the crash. Those are one hell of a cigar here. But we cannot get around this final scene. It's supposed to be the pinnacle battle where humanity comes back, from the verge of extinction and defeats these aliens with superior technology. And it has to be done by that fucking idiot Russell. In this moment where he's going to be the hero remembered for all of human time. His line is, "I picked a hell of a day to quit drinking," and then salutes the president while he's on the radio before committing suicide and saving humanity. This is like a big middle finger to me. You couldn't even take this moment serious. You had to make it a damn joke and make it a goof. It ruined whatever was left of my good feelings at the end of 2.5 hours.
So I don't know what the atmosphere was like in the theater when you watched it all those years ago, but I remember distinctly in this scene, there were not one, not two, but probably 5 or 6 woos in the audience. People were cheering like mad for this. So maybe we've just been through too much. Maybe we're jaded.
But this ending, even though it sucks and it really ruins whatever was left of this movie for me, it is absolutely Oscar-worthy material when you compare it to the alternate ending. Have you ever seen the alternate ending?
I have not.
Okay. So we're questioning why you'd let Russell, a drunk crop duster, fly in combat maneuvers with whatever few skilled pilots you have left. In the original cut, people agreed with our thought. And Russell tries to volunteer, but they don't let him fly, probably because he's either drunk or he doesn't know how to fly a modern aircraft. So he goes out into the back of the RV and he takes off the plane, his crop duster, which he's been towing, and he enters the battle in his crop duster and kamikazes to save humanity in his own plane.
Now, that if they had done it like with a sort of homage to Slim Whitman or something like that, I'd say, all right, I can get into this. But yeah, that is absolutely terrible. You know, you've just seen the genocide of an alien race, and then the final stand for humanity is being done by a drunk who shouldn't be flying anyway in his crop duster with a missile that he inexplicably obtained strapped to it.
With a leather helmet and goggles.
Yeah. So, anyway, that I don't even. Yeah.
Is it July 5th yet?
Exactly. So, I guess what we're trying to say, people, is when July 4th rolls around, maybe watch Rocky 4, maybe watch Rambo, First Blood, anything but this.
God, yes.
So now comes the time in the podcast where we go to the Shat meter. The Shat meter, if you're not familiar, we will rank the movie from 0 wipes being a perfect movie, 5 wipes being an absolute disaster. On this case, let's go with 0 wipes is going to be just like Will Smith's bare chest, beautiful, glowing, ripped.
Yeah, yep.
He looks good in this movie.
Real good.
5 wipes would be like opening up a biomech suit on an alien. It's stinky, it's gooey, and it's got another smaller alien inside of it that's even worse. Big D, how do you rate this movie on the Shat meter?
Well, I'll start off by giving Raj his review, and he's not here to join us, unfortunately, traveling for work. But he gave it a 4.5 wipes. I think he's being kind. I'm giving it 5 wipes. This is the second movie I've ever given 5. The previous was Willow, and that was a shit show. This is bad, and this has the trifecta of what will really turn me off. It was 2.5 hours, but yet it felt longer, right? It's cheesy. The action was absurd. The plot was ridiculous. The tone was disjointed. I enjoyed Will Smith a bit. The relationship between Jeff Goldblum and Judd Hirsch, father and son, was really strong. But other than that, it was just a real mess. I wanted to turn the movie off, and I've never felt that way before. And I kept looking at the clock, wishing it would end. That's never happened before. That is a 5 wipe movie for me. I will not be watching this anytime soon. And I'm just thankful I will never make this mistake again.
Well, that puts me in a very odd position of being actually the cheerleader for a movie, or at least the one that liked it the most. I didn't feel it was that bad. I agree with everything you said. None of it makes sense. But the cast has got so many people in it that I love. It's got Brent Spiner. It's got Bill Pullman. It's got Jeff Goldblum. It's just loaded up. In addition to that, the action I think is fun. I imagine myself after a few drinks really liking this movie when I stopped caring about it making sense. I felt that the action sequences were fun to watch. I love dogfighting. I love explosions. I love dogs jumping through tunnels. So it had a lot of things I really liked. And I agree with you that it's very, very long, but I think of movies like Blade Runner, like Batman, that felt like they really dragged. And those movies didn't entertain me as much. I felt like I didn't need it to make sense. There was a lot going on that was fun. I can forgive the gaffes there, because this really was a movie that evoked a different era, the mid-90s, when the world needed to unite against something. We didn't even have natural enemies at the time. Like we were just fighting aliens because we'd run out of things to be scared of. We weren't afraid of Russia. Russians were our buddies. So this was a really good time movie, and I think that I can accept it for what it is. Arrival was a very well done movie, very serious. I like that. Mars Attacks is a really well done movie, really hilarious, and I think that this needed to be the big macho dumb American movie with lots of explosions and us kicking the shit out of some aliens. I would go with 3 wipes, and that brings us to an average of 4.16 repeating.
Wow, is it really 4.16?
4.5, 5, and 3.
Yeah, okay. Shit. God, okay. That puts it at number 33. The only movies that are worse than it officially are Westworld from 1973, The Highlander, and Willow. And Twister is just slightly better.
I think that's a perfect placement for this movie. In fact, I would argue this is a better movie than Twister.
No. The only way this movie could be better than Twister is if we had Bill Paxton. Then it's a 4.5 white movie.
Oh, yeah. Bill Paxton instead of Bill Pullman would be absolutely gorgeous. But Bill Paxton would have to play a military role. So you actually put Bill Paxton in as a Secretary of Defense. Now you got something. Or Bill Paxton instead of Harry Connick Jr.
No, but I don't want him to die. I want him to play a pivotal role.
Yeah, but he always dies in the movie. And if you're just sitting, can you imagine Bill Paxton chasing Will Smith around? Yeah, Big Daddy. I got you, Big Daddy.
Yes, right. We see right there. We're talking maybe a 2 white movie. Brilliant.
So we do apologize to anybody who was looking forward to us doing 10 Things I Hate About You this week. We will be bringing that to you next week. So never fear. We are here for you and your romantic needs. This concludes this week's episode of Shat the Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're on Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat the Movies. Facebook, search for Shat the Movies Podcasts. Our website is shatthemovies.com. If you have a suggestion for a theme for us to do, write us at hosts@shatthemovies.com. And if you have some feedback, if you loved Independence Day or agree with us, write us at hosts@shatthemovies.com. We're everywhere fine podcasts can be found, including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. And if you stop by iTunes, please be sure to leave a 5-star review. That helps the podcast grow. Also, you can check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Westworld, Taboo, and we just wrapped up American Gods. We'll be launching our Game of Thrones coverage in the coming week. You can find all the information on our website, shatontv.com. On behalf of my co-hosts, Big D, Dick Ebert, and Roger Roper, I'm Gene Lyons. Be sure to join us next week for 10 Things I Hate About You. Thanks, and keep on fighting the good fight, America.
Happy 4th of July. Be safe.
But it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help